Okay guys, welcome back to part 4 of the Cub build. I think I said in the last video I was going to sand the wings. That is now being done and they're looking really light and lovely actually. So I was just working on the tail feathers and I've just hinged the control surfaces and I'm going to have to join the elevators with a little bit of bent wire. Apart from that, they are ready for covering. I'm hinging with my usual 1mm fishing line. I use this little thing, by the way, to get an equal spacing on the control surface. You just, if you haven't seen them, it's got a little pinprick there. You just put it, it'll do any width up to sort of 12mm, ½ inch, something like that. You just press the little thing in and there's exactly halfway, and then I'll just run a little drill bit in which is less than a millimetre, just like that, and then the piece of fishing line. Once the control surface is covered, I'll just pinprick it through and then push the fishing lines in and just put a drop of CA in it and it wicks in. One thing you do have to do is to rough the fishing line up with a bit of sandpaper before you cut it all off. Just rough it up, otherwise your CA won't stick too well. Anyhow, that's the control surfaces. But what I was just working on was the side windows. And I've cut some out of 1/32 balsa, and they're going to go in there like that. What I want to do now is to roughly assemble the aeroplane and start positioning for the radio gear. Let me get all the radio gear together and get it balanced in, and then I'll come back to you and we'll have a look, see what's what. Okay, so I've dropped a 2S battery in the nose and roughly 2 servos right at the tail end, and we're looking at about 25% of the cord for balancing. So I think I'm going to put those servos at the end and make life easy for myself when it comes to connecting them up. Cocoa. So I've got these little servos and I'm going to mount them, or at least check the mounting. Put on some little bearers. They're only where's the hole there? They're only 3/16 balsa, but that's fine. Okay, so my 2 servos are opposite each other, but they are under the tailplane, which is what I wanted to achieve. So now you don't see anything from most angles, and these servos have actually got quite a decent length of wire on them. The motor, it's going to go there. The battery is going to drop in here. The battery, here's quite a big one, which they actually supplied with that motor, which is a 400 milliamp hour 2S, which is actually not a lot bigger than this was that 280, 260. It's amazing, but probably use a 260. So I've got to make a hatch. I've got to cut this area out. The battery will go in there behind. The motor sits in front, so the speed controller can go either down this side or in the compartment behind, but I'll probably put the receiver in the compartment behind, and then the battery wire can come up. In fact, the receiver and the speed controller could probably go back there, and then the battery cable can come up. So I've still got to work out a hatch at the front, and then we're getting pretty close to covering it. Barren flights. Chocolate. Okay guys, I've moved on a little bit I'll just give you a quick overview of what I've been up to. This piece of paper will fit. I'm just going to transfer it to celluloid, but it will fit around there, sort of something like that. And I was going to make a hatch built up, but it was proving to be a bit of a weak structure, so I got a block of wood and whacked it on there like you do, and sanded it, cut off what I'd already done, sanded it to shape, so I've got the shape, and just cut the hatch out of it there, so I'll retain that with a magnet. The other thing I've done is to make up a paper tube for the servo wires to actually run up through, because I don't like, particularly anyway, to see wires running up through the fuselage. So I know I could maybe mount the servos and stick the wires down and paint them, but I don't like sticking wires down to a structure, because eventually this model will be scrapped, of course, and if all the cabling is stuck to it, then it's a little bit harder to dismantle it, isn't it? I've seen a bit I've missed there, look. Let's see through the covering. So I'm going to keep painting this, guys, working my way along, and when I'm done I'll come back to you. Turn number 3 pattern into celluloid, and it's masking taped on, and I'd say it's pretty much in position. So now what I'm going to do is to peel off each side, run some, what I'm using is the Formula 560, the world's best canopy glue, according to this. I'm going to run some around the edge and pin it down, and same with the other side, and then using a pin just run some around the leading edge just to hold that down. I don't know if you know what that is. If you can guess, these are the components for a motor, but the idea is that I thread them on like that, and that would form the cylinders and cylinder head, and I'll just paint them black. Maybe that looks a bit big, maybe I can do with one less. I've assembled these components to look like that, so I just added the exhaust manifold, and that'll just go on the side of the cowl like that. I'm just wondering if I should make some little like they have little covers over the top. I could just fold some out of paper, I expect, but I'll just paint these black and put them on. Quite pleased with those, they look okay. So I've added some air what do you call them, guards, channeling air scoops on top of the cylinders, and a couple of little HT leads for good measure. Don't know if they should be there, but they look okay. So I think it's a bit bigger than a standard cub, but you get the idea. It looked cool flying around with what appears to be cylinder heads sticking out. Didn't use them all. This is the tissue I'm going to put on the wing. Before I tissue it, I'm going to cover it with Doculum, and then I'm going to tissue it, and then I'm going to give it the very lightest of, probably not even dope actually, I'll probably use the clear water-based varnish. So let me go and get the Doculum, clear some space, and have a go at putting this together. Right, what I'm going to do, I'm going to tack it around, get it on, and when it's covered with the tissue as well, then I'll glue it together, then I'll work out the struts. See, I was actually tempted to just cover it in clear, but which is why I've painted the whole structure, because I wanted to give myself the option. The struts go down from here, so there's a possibility that the wing will be a little bit curved up, probability actually. But I can, because I've got two struts, I can vary the strut length to get the wing, any warps out of it, up to there. After that, it's probably going to be a little bit turning up. What's going to be fun is when I pull it flat, it goes tight, and of course I'm going to tissue it flat, weigh it down, but when I take the weights off, what's going to happen? I don't know. Now, like I say, do I damp the tissue? It will go on better, it'll lay on better, so I think I will. I damp it by... If you've got no experience with tissue, then all you got to do is go and get some experience. But this tissue isn't very wet, and it is heavyweight tissue, so it's given me loads of opportunity to get it on without it tearing on there. So this is this Ronseal interior varnish, quick drying, and water based. Well, it's going on like tar. But I've started, so there's no going back for the minute. What I think I'll do is not go right over the edges, because I'll just go over the top, and then I can cut the edge when it's dry and finish it. But if it's got varnish on it already, it's not going to be so easy to bend around. That's what I'm thinking anyways. I'm not sure what I'm going to make the struts out of yet. They might be a hard balsa possibly. So all I'm really doing is gluing the tissue down to the Doculum. Okay, no outtakes on this part of the process, thankfully. So what I'll do, guys, I'll just let this dry now a bit, and then I can cut it around and take it off, and we'll see how it's performed, see how warped it is. While this lot is drying, I'm just covering the tail feathers. I've done the rudder and fin. Thought I'd just invite you in to have a look at the process. And I'm covering this dry. Very simple. Work out which is the top and the bottom. That's the bottom, so I've got a little mark on it. Cover the bottom first. And I'm using a glue stick. It's not a blue glue stick. Blue glue sticks are better because you can see where you put the glue and by how much, and it dries clear. But I can actually see pretty well on this as well because it's shining on the painted surface. So I'll put a little on, don't go crazy. And missed a bit there, let's see. And then it's the bottom, yep, and then just stick it on. I'm putting the tissue on dry on this. If you've got a curved surface, you might want to try putting it on wet for a bit of fun. So I'm just going to now just go around the edge, not tight to the, I'll show you in a minute, not tight to the surface because you want a little bit to come up around, no more than the thickness of the balsa wood, and preferably slightly less. And if you do the same when you do the other face, then they both overlap just very slightly. So we end up with that. The corner's nicked out so as each side flaps around nicely, and it's nicely stuck. You'll find that really tight corners you'll get little puckers, so what I like to do is to just nick the tissue to help it go around the bend. If you do it this way, you end up sort of putting the glue on the tissue to a degree, and it doesn't curl around and stick, sort of fold up on itself or anything. Not really wiping it on, I'm just touching it. And just make a note of where your pinholes are for your hinges, because it's amazing how one layer of tissue with a bit of glue on and you can't see them. So I've got a pin handy here. I'll just pin prick through the hinge holes, because when I get another layer on there, you're certainly not going to see it. Okay, so I mean it's as simple as that. I'll just do the same to the other side. Be right back. There we go. Okay, so that's one elevator covered. I'll let the glue stick dry a little bit, and then I'll just spritz it with water. So I'll do the rest, and then we'll have a look at the wing. Right, that's the second wing done. Do you know what? I'm loving this antique look from this varnish. It's French oak, but on top the yellow just gives us this antique-y look. A few little wrinkles, antique-y. I've just covered two halves of the fuselage, two sides. I'm going to give it the same finish, of course, and yeah, it's coming on okay. I put a couple of little straws inside there as well for the twin aerials, just to feed down, because it's really difficult to feed something down when there's nothing there, so always gets caught on things. So little straws, a good tip. Yeah, there we are, it's coming on. It's looking more like an aeroplane now. Take a look at this wing. Okay, well, it's got a similar bend to it, which is good. Feels quite strong. So now I've got a pair of wings which will fit together, and I might just have to amend the angle of this rib, because I think that's quite a lot of dihedral. It's too much, it's just going to look silly. So how am I going to do that? Well, the only thing I can do is to make a central rib, if you like, with less dihedral sanded on the sides, so it sits about there. So I need something about 1/8 of an inch. Slightly annoying, but easily remedied. So there's the wings covered. So next step is, I've covered the fuselage side as you saw earlier, and the bottom, and I think I'm going to have to stop here just for now, and I could spray it with water. Oh, I'll tell you what I haven't shown you. Look at this. The fin and rudder. I must say I am enjoying this horrible dirty antique finish. It looks really great. That just looks so clean. But this antique finish, oh, I just love it. So anyway, yeah, I've got the Piper Cub logo each side. It's just printed out on paper. What we'll do, guys, we'll stop here on part 4. Haven't quite got as much done as I wanted to, but nevertheless, I have made quite good progress, I suppose. So come back to me on part 5, where I'll have finished the tissue in and assembled the model, basically. Part 5 will probably be the finished part prior to the maiden flight. I've got an indoor session coming up in about 8 days, so plenty of time to finish it and get it flying. Got a maiden flight it down there. So yeah, there we are, coming on. It's looking really nice, isn't it, with covering on? Always does, doesn't it? So thanks for watching. If you've enjoyed the series so far, I'll link to the playlist at the end in case you haven't watched from the beginning, and when part 5 is done, I'll link to that instead of the playlist. Brilliant. Okay guys, thanks for watching. Cheerio. Great stuff. I do hope that was recording because it was so good.